Uh, want to compliment you on how smooth it's run so far this morning, and want to thank Gene and Soku for the time and effort, and you also, Macy, for all the work that's done in the past, and then again bringing this event together today for all of us to share some of our experience and to learn from each other. Our first speaker today has been with the city of Coral Gables, Florida for over 16 years. He co-chairs the GCTC Data Supercluster and has received numerous awards and recognition for his accomplishments. He's the Director of Information and Technology and the Chief Information Officer, as well as a licensed professional engineer. I'm happy to introduce to you Raimundo Rodulfo.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you all. Good afternoon or good morning, depending where you are. So thank you for the opportunity to be here in this panel and share our stories. Everything that we have accomplished has been thanks to our team. We have a great team and the support from our community and our leaders. So I want to share a little some of the things that we have done over the years in terms of collaboration regionally with smart cities, digital transformation, and also bringing digital equity, digital value to our citizens in our communities. So we are in South Florida, and some of the collaborations that we do impact, Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and other areas, and our neighbor cities in Coral Gables. Coral Gables is in the middle of Miami-Dade County, so we have a lot of traffic. So everything we do in terms of traffic, safety, mobility impacts our region. So we have millions of vehicles and visitors that they come to our region, and everything we do in Coral Gables has a regional impact. So that's why we work together with our neighbors and with the county and with the organizations that make a life in our community. So one of the first things I want to talk as part of the NIST GCTC and the Data Supercluster is talk a little about our Smart City Hub public platform and our initiative that we call a Smart City Hub. We started a few years ago building capacity, from the ground up, starting with high-speed communication. So, that's one of the most important things that we have built over the years for resilience too. So we are in a hurricane area and we have been impacted by quite a few storms over the years. And we needed a network that was engineered for resilience, engineered for sustainability, and also for high speed. So that started before we started talking about smart cities. Over the years, so I came from the telecommunications industry. So before joining the city, I was an engineer, with Motorola and other companies in telecommunications. And I brought a little of that experience to start building from scratch a smart network. Not talking too much about what we call today smart cities, but building the cyber infrastructure that was going to give us the capacity to support services and also to sustain hurricanes. And we tested that during Hurricane Irma, for example. We lost power 80% of places in the entire city, and we were able to maintain critical services like 911 and first responders, even during that crisis. So that's some of the things that we concentrated first. And now we are expanding those fiber corridors, working with our neighbor cities, and with a project called the Underline that will connect a lot of cities and areas in Miami-Dade County. So we want to connect to the Underline also and expand those fiber corridors. So that's something that we are talking today when everybody's talking about digital inclusion and closing the digital divide, and also expanding capacity for education, for telehealth, for telemedicine, and for other needs. So that's something that's critical also for us. So the Smart City Hub build capacity from Internet of Things, like sensors, like traffic sensors, public safety sensors, environmental sensors, like measuring water quality and air quality, and gathering all that data and analyzing it in public clouds. And once we have that data analyzed in a safe way in those clouds, we started providing a lot of open data to our citizens. So that data is available today. If you go to the Smart City Hub in coralgables.com/smartcity, you will find a lot of digital value that we are providing, like transparency portals, like Internet of Things dashboards in real time. We are providing citizen engagement tools, and we are collaborating. So we are connecting our hub to Miami-Dade County. We're connecting it to City of Miami. We are also connecting it to education, to the University of Miami, to Florida International University. So we have that as one of the action clusters in our regions from the NIST GCTC. So the Coral Gables Smart City Hub is an action cluster, and we are trying to expand the outreach of the hub to the entire region. So some of the collaborations with the universities that I mentioned is FIU, Civic Coders. So we have open APIs. Anybody who wants to connect to bring value, they can connect through open APIs. And we have Civic Coders, Code for South Florida, for example, that has collaborated with us in the past. Students from universities, they all collaborate. So that's an action cluster, and I invite you to visit to learn more about it. It's coralgables.com/smart city. If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the other collaboration that I mentioned, so with our neighbors, Miami-Dade County, City of Miami, we signed MOUs to share data. And in those MOUs, we are sharing data about utilities. For example, we recently connected our trolley transit real-time data to the Miami-Dade County transit system. So like in any big county with many municipalities, a lot of jurisdictional silos exist. That is the reality. So we're trying to bridge all those jurisdictions with data and with a value that we can share to be more efficient. For example, capital improvement projects. We are sharing data on CIPs. That way we know what's happening. So if, for example, Miami-Dade County or the Department of Transportation, they are working on a project in a major artery that goes through Coral Gables. Even though there's a jurisdictional boundary there, we still need to know. We need to seize the opportunity to collaborate and maybe have the opportunity to install fiber conduits and make it a smart project. And so those collaborations exist when there is knowledge and there is communication. So that's what we're trying to do. So communicate through those platforms that talk to each other, mostly into GIS, but now we are expanding that to management of traffic, to transit, public transportation. We are also connecting data related to projects and to right-of-way, sharing right-of-way data. So that's kind of like the, the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. So that's very important for us to have that coordination, sometimes in real time. And the other thing that we are integrating is our GIS. So geospatial analytics is key. Everything is location aware today, and we need to make sure that we have that coordination and we share data. For example, when there's a road closure, so we need to know if it affects the entire region. So even though it's happening in different multi-jurisdictional scenarios, we need to know. So that's what we're doing today, connecting the data. And the citizen benefits, because at the end, better coordination, better efficiency, better services for the citizens, but also open data that is available today through, for example, sharing transit data, GTFS real-time type of data that connects transit in real-time, GPS location of trolley buses as part of a major metropolitan transportation system. So the citizen benefits with insight and with knowledge. And during COVID-19, there has been a lot of collaboration. We have met frequently and shared data and efforts between the University of Miami, for example, the Institute of Data Science and Computing, or the School of Engineering in the Florida International University. We have multiple projects and research. And also between Miami-Dade County, City of Miami, and Coral Gables, we share data and insight during the pandemic. So that has been important and has made a difference. In some cases, we share utilities or tools. Somebody has a good idea on how to develop a hyperlocal data hub or a mobile app, and we learn from each other. So that has been part of that collaboration. And also with nonprofits and with community engagement type of organizations that they have their feet on the ground, and sometimes they have that grassroots knowledge that help us to increase the outreach of these collaborations. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I mentioned the universities. So some of the collaborations that we are working on now is to improve energy resilience for public safety buildings. For example, our 911 center. So we have this project that we submitted together with universities and technology leaders in energy efficiency and new efficient solar panels and batteries. Gathering together all those players, we submitted a proposal to NSF. We did it also that through other collaborations. So we have like 3 or 4 projects that we have submitted together. Some of them have been awarded in the past and we are realizing the benefits now. Some of them are still waiting, in the Civic Innovation Challenge process. The goal in these collaborations is to improve energy efficiency and energy resilience during hurricanes for public safety facilities. And other collaborations have to do with creating data hubs regionally. So we can expand the capacity of the Smart City Hub of Coral Gables or the Open Data Hub of Miami-Dade County or the GIS Open Platform of City of Miami. At the end, connecting all those pieces together. We are in the first phase of connectivity, but there's a lot more that we want to achieve. And of course, leverage the power of exponential technologies, AI and analytics, machine learning to correlate data from all these different domains. We can go to the next slide, please. Something that we are doing also is helping businesses that I didn't mention in the previous slide. So we are helping local businesses with trainings and with webinars. We are collaborating with the NIST GCTC on that, with the Cybersecurity and Privacy Advisory Committee, and also with the Chamber of Commerce. We are collaborating with the Business Improvement District and the local businesses and the universities. Basically, we are bringing together digital economy tools to small businesses that are having a big trouble to communicate or connect to the customers and the supply chain. Because they were a little behind in digital transformation or joining these e-commerce tools that others have been able to apply in the past. And they are in a big need to do it quickly and to be able to effectively apply those tools and do it safely and avoid cyber fraud. So we have been working with local businesses as well as part of this collaboration. FIU, similarly to we have a lot of projects, some research projects that we have submitted to the NSF. We have published like 6 papers together also in multiple areas of a smart city. So our biggest benefit from this is learning, I guess. And we are collaborating in IoT to measure water quality in our canals and also to improve situational awareness with emergency management. Those universities, they have supercomputers that we don't have. So we are also leveraging the power of their supercomputers when we partner. So that's something that is benefiting also our municipalities during this collaboration. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay, I'm done. I think I covered all the major areas that I wanted to talk about.
Thank you. Our next guest has a long history of strategizing to deliver complex solutions for power and utility companies in all their facets of operations. And for the past year, his work in public-private collaborations in the Washington, D.C. metro area at Connected DMV, which is D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Karl Darin.
Thank you, Mayor McCarthy. I really appreciate it. And it's a pleasure to be on this panel speaking with everyone that's joined today, and certainly with my fellow distinguished panelists. I wanted to just give an overview of Connected DMV and what we're all about. So if we move on to the next slide, Connected DMV is an initiatives-based charitable 501c3 organization that works with regional organizations across DC, Maryland, and Virginia, that's the DMV, to help drive ongoing improvements to social, digital, and physical infrastructure. And when we were putting this together, we realized there's many organizations in our region that highlight, advocate, and promote a number of different initiatives and objectives. Our primary focus is to deliver hard projects for our region. So our mission is to deliver, to do it collaboratively, and to focus on equitable growth and results. We believe that economic renewal cannot happen, without social equity, and social equity can't happen unless it's embedded into the core of our economy. So, we put together this infinity symbol on purpose to show that these two factors are inextricably linked and both essential. A little bit of background on the DMV. Greater Washington is the 6th largest region in the U.S. and it has a unique set of assets that enable opportunities and growth. We've got 24 local jurisdictions, so those are city and county jurisdictions that make up the region, with a population of about 6.2 million people. Very highly ranked in terms of one of the highest educated metropolitan areas. It's got the 2nd highest concentration of technology workers and 3 airports, 21 transit systems, 10 interstate highways. In essence, a number of great assets. However, we've seen that this 6th largest metropolitan statistical area, if you will, has consistently underperformed at the expense of our people and our economy. And so, a lot of that is driven by the fragmentation that I just described across these 24 jurisdictions. It's limited accountabilities, it's limited the ability to have strong economic growth, and it's also extended a number of social inequities. In Greater Washington, we're really focused on addressing these problems with Connected DMV. And so we've created an organization that pulls the region together to focus on driving tangible projects and results that advance our region. And so, the key takeaways here, really, it's a delivery organization spanning local jurisdictions. We're aligned with a number of regional organizations, all of the major ones, and we collaborate across, public, private, academia, and community. So this is truly a regional model. So if we look at the next slide, this is really how we view our responsibilities, through our objectives, and it's what we're commissioned to do. So, first and foremost, we provide a public-private capability to identify, launch, and deliver integrated regional initiatives. And that's with alignment and support from a number of different DMV regional organizations. So that's the delivery capability. And then, we're also focused on lessening the burden of government, helping to enable a more trusted, equitable, sustainable environment for our region that improves how people live, learn, work, connect, and prosper. And then finally, holding ourselves accountable for regional results and progress through transparent measurement and reporting. So that's so those first 2 slides I think give a good sense of what Connected DMV and what we're all about. If we go to the next slide, we believe really to deliver integrated results, we need to have a common view of our region. And so we put together this framework, which is that common view. And in the horizontals, we have represented the enabling capabilities. These are all capabilities that our local jurisdictions and our region are responsible for delivering, whether it be planning and economic development, procurement capabilities, social inclusion, different levels of cyber data management and privacy. That's certainly top of mind for all local governments and jurisdictions, and a technology architecture that provides interoperability across solutions, and certainly resilience. So those horizontals are the capabilities. The verticals are the industry sectors from which many different solutions will come. And so the complexity clearly with this framework is in the intersections, and that just reinforces why we need an integrated approach to economic renewal and social equity. So this is also how we organize our network. Over a year ago, we formed 18 solution groups, one for each one of the horizontals and verticals in this framework. And we now have a network of about 400 volunteers from 200 organizations that bring insights and input to us through our solution groups. So that's how we've organized ourselves. And then as the COVID pandemic hit in February and March, we put this model to work. And if we go to the next slide, in April of this year, Connected DMV formed the COVID-19 Strategic Renewal Task Force. And this task force brings together 51 leaders who represent regional organizations, academia, the public sector, industry, community, and the federal government. And the task force was created to work through the regional organizations to provide the regional coverage, and the leaders from the regional organizations serving on the task force are shown here in this diagram in the green boxes. So those 12 boxes, in addition to the light blue boxes showing the task force members who have responsibility for our region from 4 key federal government agencies. And then we added the public sector representatives in orange, academia from K through 12 through community colleges and universities in the dark blue, and then the rest, the industry and community folks represent the different sectors to give basically an entire view of our region. So this task force has been convening monthly now since May. We just held our 6th meeting here a couple of weeks ago in mid-October. And the purpose has really been to identify initiatives to help the region recover from COVID-19 and to emerge better than where we were before. And so the task force has currently approved 12 initiatives across the meetings that we've conducted that our region needs to deliver, and there are many more in the pipeline. And I'll give just a couple of examples of a few initiatives that that have been approved that we're working on. One is a regional economic development strategy. This launches an initial 6-month effort to develop priorities for enhancing our regional strengths, for attracting new industries, diversifying the economy, and advancing regional cooperation. And we're doing this in partnership with regional economic development authorities and economic development corporations, as well as planning departments and some of the key regional organizations like the Council of Governments that represents the local jurisdictions, the Board of Trade, which represents industry, WMATA, which runs the metro, bus, and train transit system, and other regional orgs and industry and community organizations. So that's one initiative. Another example is regional resilience exercises. This is an initiative that is launching a series of regional public-private crisis exercises, with the first event focusing on optimizing the distribution of food during pandemic conditions. And that's something that became critically aware and noticeable with the advent of COVID-19. And Connected DMV is working closely with the Capital Area Food Bank in Greater Washington and other experts to put together a digital workshop, based on lessons learned from the spring in order to address a potential COVID-19 surge or the same kind of challenges in future pandemics. And then finally, we've got an initiative that's focused on pandemic prevention and biodefense that is addressing the need to better equip society for future pandemics through a proactive approach that integrates the sectors, the functions, and the disciplines to be able to integrate across functions to address the pandemic prevention value chain. And one of the lead projects that's being considered for this is called the Head 100, which is a targeted program that seeks to develop best-in-class human antibodies for solutions for the top 100 likely causes of pandemics in the future. So if you think about putting a capability and an initiative and a center in place to be able to do that, to advance us to the point where we can very quickly respond to future pandemics, that's what this is about. So those are just a few examples of some of the highly impactful initiatives that we're currently launching and beginning to deliver in the DMV to address the COVID-19 pandemic, but also just our broader economic renewal, health, and social equity.
Thank you, Karl. It's an impressive overview you gave us. Our next speaker actually works for me and has been with the city of Schenectady for the past 30 years. While his title is Signal Superintendent, and I'm not quite sure why we have that title, he does in fact oversee all the traffic controls in the city, but for the past 15 years, he's also managed all of our information technology services and staff. He's been the lead on all of our smart city deployments and initiatives, and I'm happy to introduce you to John Coluccio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like many communities, we started our smart city process by educating ourselves, learning about technology, talking to our many partners to learn what was available and what the potential benefits were from that technology. Our first pilot project included just 6 Wi-Fi connected smart lights and a single access point in front of City Hall. This enabled us to test out the hardware and software along with testing, dimming, and reviewing energy usage reports on the lighting. Luckily, we've not been on this path to smart city alone. We're lucky to have partnered with our local utility company, National Grid, on what's called a REV demonstration project. New York Governor Cuomo has developed a strategy for clean, resilient, and more affordable energy systems while actively spurring energy innovation and bringing new investments to the state of New York. While there are a number of REV projects that are funded, ours in Schenectady focuses on these key factors. Reduce energy consumption of the street lighting system by replacing existing fixtures with LEDs, deploying smart city technologies and services using streetlight infrastructure as a platform to install connected devices in a low bandwidth wireless network. Evaluate and analyze how to provide these smart city services and facilitate community engagement. Explore opportunities to animate the market through strategic partnerships with third parties that lead to co-investment in the creation of a smart city marketplace. All this with a high attentiveness to network threat protection and secure network deployments. We're seeing 50% lighting energy consumption and reduced greenhouse gas emissions from street lighting conversions. Improved maintenance and asset management of our street lighting along with proactive repairs to street lighting issues. Additionally, video analytic sensors are an integrated part of this deployment that provide mobility study data on traffic and pedestrians that help city staff and developers looking to relocate to the city, along with video that helps our law enforcement reduce the time it takes to close investigations. Built-in environmental sensors provide up-to-the-minute granular air quality data to understand if certain neighborhoods in the city have isolated issues. Outside of our REV demonstration project, we've concurrently worked on several other initiatives, and I want to tell you about 2 of them. Next slide, please. The deployment of public Wi-Fi has been another of our main projects. It's not limited to just our downtown business district, but it's planned to blanket our entire city with a multi-year process. This is a Pew Research Center article from April 30th of this year, and I just want to read a little bit of it. Overall, roughly 1 in 5 parents with homebound children say it's very or somewhat likely their children will not be able to complete their homework because they do not have access to a computer at home, or they have to use public Wi-Fi to finish their schoolwork because there's not a reliable internet connection at home. And about 3 in 10 parents report that it's at least somewhat likely their children will have to do their schoolwork on a cell phone. The ability to provide Wi-Fi to lower income audiences brings us closer to closing this digital divide. Not only can this influence the education of our children, but entire households can take advantage of the opportunities of making better informed purchasing, health, and other decisions through the ability to research online. In response to the pandemic, we were strategically positioned to quickly expand our wireless Wi-Fi network into the community on an accelerated basis. We created a public Wi-Fi landing page with a real-time Esri mapping program to show residents exactly where our public Wi-Fi is available. We partnered with our local school district who provided us data on where they deployed Chromebooks to students and shared information on surveys that showed us where students did not have internet access. We concentrated our efforts in those areas and deployed an additional 50 access points in those targeted networks. At the same time, we found the Wi-Fi provided so much more. It enables access for government services by city staff and residents. And we're able to provide focused local content to neighborhoods on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis for each access point. Next slide, please. This is a project that we've been involved in for a few years, which is on a much more regional basis, created with a couple of grants from New York State, Department of State. It centers on the issue of urban blight, vacant or minimally maintained properties, and how regional code enforcement efforts and partnerships can address these issues. Blighted properties are costly for all communities, not just Schenectady. We've been working on creating code enforcement software that provides actionable data and truly responds to all our needs. Currently, there's limited to no access to timely and accurate data on properties, property owners, and landlords, as well as information on critical programs and how they're carried out within each jurisdiction. There's also no way to share this information across jurisdictions so that leaders can use it to inform decision-making. All communities carry out code enforcement, but we all do it differently and collect different information. By working together with what's called the Code Project, we've come up with software that responds to the 8 core programs of work shown on that slide, and that are focused and normalizes the data that is collected. But this is just the foundation. We've taken this information and we're sharing it across our region. Now a community that joins us can search centralized data to find information on property owners, landlords, agents, some of which work to be very elusive. The legal course to locate some owners or LLCs is very cumbersome and costly, and more jurisdictions that become a part of this platform will increase the likeliness of finding patterns of neglect by owners and easing the burden of cost of research. The greatest part of this web-based platform is the ability to link actors that show a connection by properties, mailing address, names, or legal addresses. Oftentimes, an owner or LLC can change a letter or two in their name when registering in different communities or even the same communities. We don't want to move these problem actors from one city to another, but to force them to clean up their acts for everyone. We currently have just 4 communities in our project, and our plan is to add a few more in the next coming months. Our goal is to make this even statewide or countrywide program in the future. And if anyone is interested in learning more about this project, please feel free to contact me after this event. Next slide, please. Sharing some of the lessons that we've learned along the way is one of the most important components of being a smart city. So I'd like to talk to you about a few of these lessons that we've learned. Being part of multiple GCTC superclusters for the past several years has been a key factor in setting our foundational goals. Nothing has to be done from scratch, and the plethora of information available from this group of professionals is unmatched. These groups and their blueprints have been some of our best partners. Security of the hardware, software, and data is, of course, number one main goal for us. Educating our own staff and employees on the benefits of the technology has not always been easy. Having regular updates on project status and providing them with sample data has been extremely helpful in this area. Being able to use this data that you collect in a form that's reliable and shareable to those that can benefit from it. Use open data source and work to have all the data sets in one pane of glass to see it all at once and not to have to struggle to find it when you need it. Return on investment is something very difficult to determine for projects, and for some applications will take a long time to unravel. We found that the evaluation plan to determine the value sometimes cannot be developed until you're down the road on an installation, even though you know it truly exists. Purchase equipment that's tested, hardened, and will last. If you're the first to try something, then you have to understand that there may be issues with it when it's first rolled out. Reasonable costs of the deployment that can improve the efficiency of government and become replicable for others that follow. Choose a vendor that has a strong history in the market. Through our deployment, we've seen some rise and some fall along the way already. These are some of the detours or pain points, I like to call them, that we've seen on our journey. Obtaining funding for the projects has not always been easy, and that's why it's so important to keep all of our constituents, including our city council, informed along the way. Our mayor, Gary McCarthy, has been the biggest proponent for smart cities and part of all our discussions. Provide regular updates to your constituents on the status of your projects, both good and bad. Some things will work and some things won't. Set goals for yourselves and provide backup of the data that you've collected to everyone. Sometimes it will take multiple sessions to have everyone understand technology. So create executive summaries that break it down for them, including the budget allocations. Have clear policies on the data you're collecting and the limitation on the amount of personal data that's obtained. Some of this will, again, be a work in progress as you move along the journey, and just make sure that you maintain transparency along the way. Expect the project to take longer than you envisioned, especially if you're using cutting-edge technology. Some vendors portray their software and hardware as market ready when it's really only done out in small test beds. Reach out to those test beds and find out the actual status of these deployments. New technology that's ahead of the curve of the knowledge base of vendors that are ready to deploy it. In many situations, updated hardware and software becomes available during the long process of bidding, awarding, and installation. We've actually had to go back to our designs to make changes, and this extends the time frame for completing our project and can obviously cost additional dollars. Make sure you fully understand the software as a service costs that are offered. This is something that is relatively new and very popular with vendors. They need to be profitable for these companies and still show savings for the customers in the long run. The market will help determine what's reasonable, but it may take some time for these to level off as additional users are added to the systems. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
John, thank you. Our last speaker has over 40 years of experience as a cybersecurity and privacy expert. He has been an advisor to countless security firms and police departments, as well as teaching security to numerous other companies, many in the financial arena. I would never be able to do this man's resume justice in the limited time that we have here today. His most recent focus has been on mental health and the wellness and how this is a real issue for some of our IT professionals that can lead to errors, oversight, and create opportunities for cyber criminals. I'm pleased to introduce to you Neal O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor McCarthy, and thanks to everyone for inviting me here today. I just want to make sure that everything's unmuted. It sounds like it is. So my presentation, you've got the first slide up there. My presentation is going to be one of the shortest. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's because our cluster is brand new. Our goal is to look at, and I'll explain in a minute who the R is. Our goal is to look at how we can encourage and support smart cities in maintaining the mental health and wellness of the residents. If we view a smart city or any city as being a democracy, the ultimate focus and goal has to be on the benefit to its residents. If we look at the world of mental health and the incredible global imperative that it's become, in the United States, it's widely recognized that about 1 in every 5 people struggles with some kind of mental illness, many with more than one. Probably millions more are struggling with their own emotional health problems as they try to support family members who are struggling with these illnesses. We're also seeing the trickle-down effect of mental illnesses through families, through suicide, through domestic violence, through incarceration, to law enforcement, to our military. So our hope is to find ways that we can maximize not just the mental health, but the collateral benefits, the mood, the happiness, the joy, which are so key to surviving and living in a city or in any community, and especially as we're dealing with the multiple collateral impacts of COVID. We've seen very troubling spikes in almost all mental health issues, from depression to anxiety, PTSD, suicide, as a result of COVID. Some early studies are coming out suggesting that those who have been severely hospitalized because of COVID, more than 90% of them are showing early signs of PTSD, which means it's something that they're going to deal with for probably many years to come. And at the same time, cities and communities are struggling with budgets to manage mental health and provide essential services. They were challenged financially before COVID, and the problem has become much more severe since then. So as we come out of COVID, I think it's a tremendous opportunity to focus on this, because a mentally healthy population makes cities thrive. They really do. I mean, if you just look at the workplace, for example, mental health is the #1, and particularly depression is the #1 reported disability in workplaces. It's the #1 healthcare cost for workplaces. It's costing U.S. businesses around $200 billion a year. The World Health Organization recently cited depression as the #1 healthcare challenge for humanity. So these are loud, clarion calls to arms that we really have to address. So our cluster is very, very young. We had our first meeting last week, so nothing to report yet. But we are going to look at the gamut of challenges within cities, leaving aside the smart part for now. But we know that there are certain things in the designs and operations of cities that improve mental health, green spaces, security and safety, lighting, noise, pedestrianization, commuting, traffic. We know they exist. We know those solutions are there. We just haven't figured out how to maximize them, how to structure and recalibrate and rewire our cities so that they accommodate the health of the people who live and work and make these cities thrive. Someone gave me a very simple example the other day of a dog park. What a positive mental assistant something as simple as a dog park is. It hits 5 or 6 of the things that mental health experts say make us feel better. They're usually green spaces. They're usually out in the open. They're usually fresh air, depending on what city you live in, of course. It's a chance to get away from work pressures, maybe from family pressures. It's a chance to socialize. We know that socialization is tremendously important, particularly in dealing with anxiety and depression, and also with PTSD. You're not just socializing with new people and with strangers, but you're socializing with people who have a common cause and a common view of the world. They like dogs. And you're also socializing with dogs, which have been shown to be incredibly therapeutic, particularly for people struggling with PTSD. That's why we're now seeing so many therapy animals. So I'm looking forward to the day that we actually move beyond dog parks to cow parks, because there's a growing mountain of science that shows that hugging a cow gives us a magnificently valuable spike in oxytocin, which is the love and the hug and the bonding hormone in the brain. So I would hope that before I grow old and die, that I will see cow parks throughout your cities, and I'll do it my best. I have hugged a cow, by the way, full disclosure. And on the smart side, we know that cities are developing smart sensors that can detect very, very subtle changes in things like temperature, airflow, humidity, allergens, pollutants, noise, and light. Things that also very subtly affect mood, affect stress. So if we can use that data in a secure and safe way to recognize where and when in the city maybe stressors are at unnecessarily high levels and adjust those. Pedestrianization, very, very important. Social access, very important. Access to telehealth. The relationship between mental health and housing availability, mental health and exercise, mental health and nutrition. As I started to transition away from cybersecurity, in part because of my own mental health issues and into mental health and mental wellness, I was astounded at how little I knew how my brain works and how unfamiliar I was with the control that I have over the chemicals in my brain, and how the environment around me, the city and the community that I live in, influences those. So these are some of the things that we're starting to address with our new cluster. We're brand new. We only met last week. If you want to move on to the next and final slide, these are just some of the partners that we're dealing with so far. Mental Health America, which is the longest established mental health organization in the United States. I think they're over 100 years old and counting. The Anxiety and Depression Association of America, the National Council for Behavioral Health, and good old Thrive NYC, started by the Mayor de Blasio's office, one of the biggest experiments in how a city can better manage the mental health of its residents. And we've now started talking to a number of organizations that represent thousands of cities and counties across the country to get them engaged and involved, see what they want, see what they need, and not just try to guess what the particular struggles that they're dealing with. And one of the initiatives that has come up is something called Mind Me, where we will be building and providing free of charge mental health education websites to all these cities, based on a very fundamental belief that absent good services, the next best thing is education, connection, and support. And if we can bring that content and those experts down into a local community level, we can have a far greater reach than many of these national programs. So please stay tuned for what we plan and learn over the next couple of months, and through Gene Rice and others, contact me, and I'd love to share what we're learning, and we'd love to have you involved.
Neal, thank you for that great information. It's a great area to be working on. Raimundo, if I could go back to you, the city of Coral Gables, under your leadership, roughly the last 16 years, has spearheaded a large number of what would be considered smart city projects. Could you talk a little bit about how you are able to determine which ones have long-term sustainability? And do you have one that has been the most productive or had the biggest impact during the pandemic?
Thank you. Yes, Mayor. Basically, any project that has an impact in quality of life in terms of public safety, public health, has a high priority, and we make sure that it has long-term sustainability. We can talk, for example, our public safety projects that have leveraged Internet of Things and computer vision and other technologies to improve insight and situational awareness for emergency managers, for first responders during hurricanes or during crises like COVID-19. So those technologies, they have had long-term sustainability as part of our Community Intelligence Center. And any technology that we have implemented to improve connectivity and also to bring high-speed communications in urban areas, it had initially a higher cost of implementation first time, and sustainability has been built into our capital refresh plan of infrastructure and also into our operating costs. Everything, of course, is being impacted by the pandemic in terms of financial sustainability, but we make sure that those ones that have high priority, they have a long-term viability and sustainability. The biggest impact, in my opinion, is everything that we have done that has bring resilience during natural disasters and the capability to impact public safety, like emergency management and fire. So public Wi-Fi networks are used after a hurricane for residents to stay connected, for example. So those kind of things had a big impact. Yeah.
Thank you. Karl, Connected DMV has over 250 organizations in 24 jurisdictions listed as partners. With this many members, is it difficult to have the focus of everyone be on the greater good of the region? Do you find that the socioeconomic landscape of such a diverse group make it hard to follow through with results of collaboration?
That's a good question. I mean, we put together a collaboration that's truly representative of our region and also an operating model that fosters, enables the collaboration. So, for example, each of our 18 solution groups has co-chairs who are volunteer leaders from industry, government, academia, and community to help inform our solution and initiatives. And in some cases, we have leaders from organizations that compete in marketplaces like consulting, products, or telecommunications, for example, working side by side as co-chairs in our solution groups to help advance the region. So, you know, similarly with the task force, the way I described it, you know, we've got representatives from the major regional organizations, the local jurisdictions, academia, and so forth. And just overall, you know, we think this really demonstrates the power of both leverage and community. And, you know, the way that they're all collaborating together, I think shows just tremendous stewardship on their part. You know, with the socioeconomic landscape and diverse group that you described, and we think that's essential in order to advance economic growth, health, and social equity in the region. So, you know, we see tremendous alignment with this broad group in Greater Washington, just around, you know, the challenges that we face, you know, with inadequate readiness, you know, for things like a pandemic, you know, insufficient integration across public, private, academia, and community, the lack of, you know, solutions that can be rapidly deployed in response to pandemics and other threats, technology capabilities, as we've heard about in a couple of other of the panelists' discussions here, and how that's outpaced, you know, society really. So, you know, we've seen a lot of alignment that just cross-sector leadership is required to address all of these significant challenges.
It is an impressive group you have. John, our city has also worked on a number of smart city projects over the past several years. What would you say is the greatest achievement that you've seen from some of these projects, or any one particular project?
I'd have to say that the greatest achievement that I've seen from the Smart City project is all of our departments working together more than I've ever seen before. We're sharing our data across all of the departments and making that information available for all of our employees to help make informed decisions. A few years ago, no one knew what information each individual department maintained or had. And now we make it all available very easily using platforms like Esri or GIS. We have layers of information from all different departments that, again, we found out people were collecting information that two departments might have been collecting the same information, So we made ourselves much more efficient by centralizing this kind of data and being able to share it with all our employees. So I think that was probably the best thing that I've seen come out of the smart city initiatives that we've been doing.
Thank you. Neal, the world is truly a different place as we knew it from a year ago. Why is mental health so important now, and how has it changed really with COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed so fundamentally and frighteningly. And it's not just that the number of stressors, the number of things that either make mental illness work or worse, or increase anxiety and stress, but it's also the lack of resources available to treat them, the lack of social connection, which are so important in maintaining mental health, the absence of routine, which for we humans is incredibly important in keeping us safe and sane. How we come out of this the other side, I'm really not sure, other than, and maybe it's because I'm a little bit new to this, but the recognition that we are all in some way suffering, and suffering in a very detrimental way to both ourselves, to our families, to our communities. There's certainly a very strong recognition that needs to be addressed. Someone pointed out to me, and I've stolen it and I keep using it, that mental health is a great equalizer in the sense that we all weigh about the same. We are all that 3 pounds or so of fat, water, and magic above the shoulders. And we really need to focus on that more than ever as we come out of COVID. And COVID may be an extended period of time, and with all the other, with elections and with social disruption, if we don't get a grip of it now, the challenge coming out of this could be perhaps more than many communities will be able to address.
Yes, thank you. Do we have any questions from any of the participants? A few more minutes. If I go back to Karl, do you see DMV as something that would expand, or is it possible to duplicate that in other regions throughout the country?
Absolutely. The framework that we've created is comprehensive across capabilities and industry groups that are in the DMV, but it's not unique to the DMV. There are the same industries represented in other regions, and more importantly, the capabilities are all areas that the local governments are responsible for delivering in all regions, like planning and economic development, procurement, cybersecurity, and so forth. So yeah, it's a model that's very much applicable to other regions.
Thank you. Neal, how can smart cities help to improve mental health of their residents and maybe even businesses?
I think by recognizing that it should be core to their mission, coming from a technology background and having worked in IoT previously, and amazed that the focus so much is on the technology and the capability and the vulnerability and the viability, and not much focus on what you're really trying to serve, which is the population. So I think you've got to start with the premise that whatever you do has to be in the best interest of the population. And a simple example for me is commuting. We wonder why commuting is such a stressful thing, and the assumption was always, well, people are frustrated with sitting in traffic or waiting in lines or waiting for a bus or a train. But what psychologists now believe is giving people too much time to mull about what they're not looking forward to. So simply addressing things like traffic and commutes can impact the mental health of our residents and employees in a way that we probably never thought of before. So that's got to be, anything that we do in smart cities must put people and minds first.
Thank you. Raimundo, Coral Gables has an open data portal, which includes data from a number of your smart city sensors. Can you tell us what kind of interest or the response, or what the response has been from users wanting to access this data?
Thank you, Mayor. So stakeholders, are part of the ecosystem. So we have the people and the residents and the visitors of the city. We know they use it to get insight and to get access to apps or information about the city services, or to access those services digitally. And they contribute also to the quality of the service by providing feedback and engaging. So we know they use the platform in that way. And we know the businesses use it for strategies. For example, if you have a retail shop in downtown area, you check those dashboards of real-time traffic, and you know what are the patterns at different times of the day, and you craft your commercial and sales strategies and your business strategies based on that data. So that's data and insight that in the past you need a lot of marketing analysis to get that kind of intelligence, and you are getting that business intelligence for free from our website and from our Smart City Hub. We know traffic engineers use the traffic data frequently to improve the safety of our roads, or when they are designing new crosswalks. So they see all those patterns and that analytics from traffic. So depending on who you are, where you work at, we know university researchers, they see the water quality data for marine biologists, or also for public works engineers that want to check the level of the water for emergency managers. And first responders, they use it also. And we know it's for safety. So they check either traffic data, or they also check public sentiment data. So we have artificial intelligence now that is applied to the feedback that we are getting from the citizens. And we know how the effectiveness of our policies and our actions are, gathering that feedback and analyzing it almost in real time, like day by day. So those are some of the uses. There are many other uses, but when you go to the Smart City Hub, you see so many different sections. I call it a digital supermarket. So depending on what aisle of the supermarket you are, so you get different value.
Thank you. John, I think we have like a minute left. Can you give us an example of how the wireless network has made an improvement in city services aside from just internet access?
So one of the things that we've used our wireless network for is for a police department to download our in-car videos and body cams on a secure wireless network. And that's made a huge improvement in efficiency for our police department. They no longer have to leave their cars at the station to finish a download, because it happens automatically as they drive through the city. Before, we had someone where part of his job was actually to make sure that he obtained the video from the cars, or changed out even DVDs on a regular basis. So again, both our body cams and our in-car videos automatically download effortlessly without intervention from anybody, and it's been fantastic, and we'll look to expand it more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Raimundo, Karl, Neal, and of course, John. I think a great discussion. And again, we're all available if people have additional questions, or we can assist other communities or groups. Always ready to work and make things better. And I'll now turn it back over to, go back to Macy, or is Jean Rice going to take over?
I think I'll take it now. Thank you.